Hello, everyone. I am Alex Lim, your host, and welcome to AuthorStory, the home of authors and stories that matter. This episode's featured guest is Kris Holmes, who is the author of this episode's featured book, Ignite Your Career Strategies and Tactics to Unleash Your Potential. So, Kris, welcome to AuthorStory. Thank you very much for being with us.
Alex, thanks so much for having me on.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So to start off, you are an executive, excuse me, you're an executive recruiter and a partner of the O'Connell Group, which is an executive search firm, which also does consumer marketing research, and you're also a member of the Pinnacle Society. Can you tell me what these organizations are all about?
Absolutely. So the O'Connell Group is one of the top marketing and market research recruiting firms in North America.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
we've been around for 27 years and we do everything from chief marketing officer down to entry level positions
Mm-hmm.
coast to coast with
Right.
companies as large as Fortune 50 to private equity.
Right.
So we know the universe intimately.
Oh, great.
Um,
Great.
and the average tenure of our recruiting firm is about 12 years. So
Uh-huh.
we have a
Uh-huh.
lot of people who have been there for a long time and build long-term relationships and look to build matches where it's win-win, where we're building teams, we're building careers, we're building businesses.
Right. Right. And the Pinnacle Society? What is
Yeah, the Pinnacle Society is an amazing group of the top recruiters in North America and actually beyond, because we do have a recruiter who comes in from Australia now.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And it is the top 80 recruiters, and they get together. We get together. I was inducted in 2016, twice a year,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
non-pandemic,
mm-hmm.
and share best practices. And it's an amazing group, and it's someplace people can go to when they're looking for top recruiters in their industry, either to build their organization or to partner with to find a new job. And it's
Mm-hmm.
just a wonderful, wonderful organization.
Wow. Okay. All right. So I'd like to go a little bit further back in time, so to speak, because before you became an executive recruiter, you worked in consumer marketing, correct? With such companies as Johnson Johnson and Kraft Foods.
I did. So, Alex, my career was I was lucky enough to go to Kellogg Business School and fell in love with marketing
Wow.
and was lucky enough to get into brand. I worked at, as you said, Johnson and Johnson and Kraft and Herman Miller Furniture Company in a division of Nestle
Mm-hmm.
before my company was sold and I switched over to recruiting. But
Mm-hmm.
I loved marketing, and what I will tell you is there were parts of marketing that I was phenomenal at, and there are other
Uh-huh.
parts that were a bit of a grind for me. And I
Okay.
could do them, but they didn't come easy. I had to work really hard.
All right.
Um, and that's what led me to shift over to recruiting as I did my own self-assessment and I realized what I was great at.
Uh-huh. Okay. And how close are marketing and recruiting? Are they essentially like one and the same thing, or I'm sure there are differences.
There are real differences, but there are overlaps.
Uh-huh.
So
Uh-huh.
marketing, you have to, I think, to be really good in marketing, you have to be very strategic. You
Uh-huh.
have to be able to
Okay.
connect the dots. You have to have very strong analytical horsepower. You
Mm-hmm.
have to be
Mm-hmm.
able to dive into the information and be able to peel the onion and
Mm-hmm.
figure
Mm-hmm.
out what it means. And then you have to be able to rally the troops. You have
Mm-hmm.
to be able to connect with people and really get them excited about your projects because many of the people you are trying to get to work on your projects do
Mm-hmm.
not report to you.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to get them to buy into your objectives and to put what you're doing as a priority.
Right.
And so the part I was great at was the people part,
Uh-huh.
connecting with the people, getting the people on my team. No matter what I did, those were always my favorite parts of the job. And that is the part that shifts over very effectively to recruiting.
Right.
And so that as I assessed my skills, the people part and then the strategic part, I'm really able to connect the dots in terms of what people want, their skills that they have, and careers that make sense. So those are the two components that really have allowed me to score effectively
Mm-hmm.
as a recruiter. The piece that didn't come as naturally, that I was able to build the muscle, but not as strong as some other people, was the analytical piece. That didn't come as
Right.
natural.
Right. Okay. Okay. And I asked because I mean this is all about this is really all about like your experience as well. I mean your decades of experience because I mean this is what the book's all about. So before we get into the book, I mean your career has covered decades, so it's a whole different world out there. I imagine for those who are just entering the job scene, say, compared to when way back when I started entering the job scene as well. So I'm thinking you have a better idea of the changes that have happened all that time, particularly the influence of the internet. What are, some of the differences that you see between the challenges that job hunters face today compared to the challenges that they faced about 2 or 3 decades ago?
Yeah, it's really an interesting question. And I would say, Alex, that there's some challenges, but
Mm-hmm.
then there are also some benefits.
Mm-hmm.
So, there are I'll first of all share the benefits.
Mm-hmm.
So, it is so much easier to network today
Mm-hmm.
with the internet, with LinkedIn,
Mm-hmm.
than it was when I was starting out, or when,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure your age or anything, but the ability to be able to find the people you want to connect with, either to, ask them questions, have
Mm-hmm.
them be mentors,
Mm-hmm.
connect and find jobs that you're interested in.
Mm-hmm.
So that part is seamless compared to what you used to have to do to
Mm-hmm.
try to track down roles. But that means it's also much more competitive
Uh-huh.
to
Okay.
to be able to stand out. The other thing is that I think is happening today, and part of it is with the internet, and so
Uh-huh.
much is being written about passion and follow your passion, and
Right.
and and I think that especially the younger generation is being led astray,
Uh-huh.
because I believe the best thing that they can do for their long-term career,
Mm-hmm.
independent of the industry,
Mm-hmm.
is build a really strong foundation,
Mm-hmm.
to focus on building that foundation. I'm not saying don't follow your passion outside of work,
Uh-huh.
and,
Uh-huh.
and keep those passions going, but the best way to be able to, take advantage of that passion through work down the road is to get the best experience,
Mm-hmm.
and to, be somebody who everybody wants because you have the best practices,
Mm-hmm.
and you have gone to the top tier company and you've learned the best practices and you know what you're doing in your field better than anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
If you build that foundation, then down the road, you can marry your experience with your passion. But
Mm-hmm.
where people get into trouble is when they try to, out of the blocks,
Mm-hmm.
follow their passion without getting that foundation.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Because it's really hard to go backwards and
right.
try to build that foundation if you've spent 5 or 10 years just following the passion without getting that experience.
Right. Right. Okay. All right. Okay. So yeah. Um. I mean, yeah. Those are the present realities. I mean, I'm thinking like, okay. Well, I'm thinking like the challenges. Some of the challenges that job seekers face today are they're really very different from say, like in my dad's time. Back in the 70s, the employee is expected to stay with the same company until they retire, and
Yes.
it's really fluid out there at the moment.
Yes. Yeah, it is. And one other thing, independent of where somebody is in their career, I certainly urge the students and the young professionals to do this,
Mm-hmm.
but even people who are in jobs where they've stagnated
Mm-hmm.
or they're not happy,
Mm-hmm.
Alex, I urge people to take a step back
Mm-hmm.
and assess, what are my strengths?
Mm-hmm.
What are my innate strengths? What makes me unique?
Mm-hmm.
How is my brain wired? What are the things that come naturally? And it's interesting because a lot of people think that things that come naturally to them aren't
Mm-hmm.
their strengths. They're just
Okay.
part of their DNA. And I would tell them they're wrong. Those are the things that really are their towering strengths. And there are different ways of doing that. You
Uh-huh.
can talk to friends and family and just say to them, you know, if you think of one or two things I'm great at, what are those things?
Mm-hmm.
You can think of jobs you've had in the past or projects you've worked on if you're a student,
Mm-hmm.
and have two pieces of paper and write down all the things you've loved and truly all the things you have not loved,
Right.
and put them on two different pieces of paper, and then cull it down to the top five of each,
Mm-hmm.
and really look at it, those, and those will kind of highlight what are you really great at and what are you not. And
Mm-hmm.
then a third one is that I really am a huge proponent of,
Mm-hmm.
is there are some assessments you can take.
Mm-hmm.
One is Strength Finders,
Mm-hmm.
and this one will tell you, ask you questions. Do you prefer X or Y? And I'll have you rank it. And from that, it'll give you your top five strengths. And
Mm-hmm.
then it'll tell you here are some places where those strengths will allow you to achieve your, you know, to be very successful. So that's one
Mm-hmm.
where it's what you think. There is a second assessment that I'm a huge fan of
Mm-hmm.
that's called U Science, YOU Science.
Mm-hmm.
And this one has you play 9 8-minute computer games.
Okay.
And from those games, it figures out how your brain is wired.
Uh-huh.
And it tells
Interesting.
you again your top strengths and where those strengths will set you up for success. And if you take those two assessments, it'll give you a really good sense of different fields you could go into
Mm-hmm.
and be successful. And I'll tell you, Alex, when I switched from marketing, where I was good,
Mm-hmm.
to recruiting,
Mm-hmm.
where I'm really good,
Mm-hmm.
from day one, recruiting felt like breathing.
Mm-hmm.
I almost was embarrassed because it felt so easy.
Mm-hmm.
And I've come to realize over the years, it's because it aligns so well with my strengths. It's not a bad thing.
Uh-huh.
It's that I fell into a career
Mm-hmm.
that is perfect for me. And that's what
Nice.
I wish for everybody.
Okay. So, all that you said before, it kind of leads me into my next question, because my initial questions prior to this were about, new job seekers. Now, I mean, there's a growing, I mean, a lot of, as I said, the market is very fluid right now. So we get people in their 30s, their 40s, 50s, mid-career, sometimes even towards the end of their careers, shifting shifting work, not just with shifting
Mm-hmm.
companies, but shifting work. So, what are what are some of the things that these older people who shift? What are some of the things that they face when they're getting into their new line of work, so to speak?
Well, again, I think that they need to figure out what are the skills that they have honed in
Mm-hmm.
their past career.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what are the things that they have developed? What are the strengths that they bring to bear?
Uh-huh.
And where can the combination of those two lead them?
Uh-huh.
I think the other thing is, what are they looking for? You know,
Mm-hmm.
if somebody is in their late 50s or 60s, they're
Uh-huh.
probably not, you know, is their driver to climb the career ladder?
Mm-hmm.
Or is their driver to make a difference in the world?
Uh-huh.
Or is their driver to, you know, make some money and build their 401k before they retire? So I
Mm-hmm.
think they have to think through all those things to try to figure out where they should target. And they
Mm-hmm.
need to know those before they start applying places.
Mm-hmm.
So they're applying the right type places. The other thing, Alex, you know, that I am a huge believer, and I have a chapter in the book that is focused on this, is independent where somebody is in their career,
Mm-hmm.
networking is so important. And
Mm-hmm.
way before you are looking for a job, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I think people should start networking in like college, freshman year. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing better to do than start reaching out to people who from your high school
Mm-hmm.
who went to your same college, and just connecting with them and asking who were great professors that you loved,
Mm-hmm.
or tell me about your career path.
Mm-hmm.
and just start networking and make it part of your daily activity. It's kind
Mm-hmm.
of like a 401k. It's a huge benefit. It's like an annuity that just keeps on growing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do that, you connect with people, you find mentors, you get advice along your career. And if and when you need to search for a job, it's so easy to activate
Mm-hmm.
that network versus the desperation people sense if you call them out of the blue needing a job versus if you've stayed in touch with them
Uh-huh.
for
Uh-huh.
years and then you reach out and you say, hey, can I share my situation? Do you have any thoughts? Anybody you can think I might reach out to? It's a very different conversation.
Right, right. It makes sense. And I think this also feeds into what you said earlier about the internet enabling networking and making it easy. Because I
Ab-
think, yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Absolutely. And during the pandemic, I have never seen people more open to networking at all levels. I've talked to more CEOs in the last year
Mm-hmm.
than I probably have in the last decade because we don't have
Wow.
the gatekeepers
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
blocking them.
Mm-hmm. Nice, nice. Okay, so all right, that's the advantage of technology right there. Excuse me. All right. Okay. So now onto the book. I mean, you've made it very clear that you have really in-depth understanding of what's going on in the in the marketplace right now. And I like to get onto the book. Well, first off, what is this book all about? I mean, what is in this?
Yeah, Alex, great question. And I want to take a step back and share kind of, if I could, why I wrote this book.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
So, you shared my background, and I have three wonderful kids,
Mm-hmm.
and they have gone to great liberal arts schools.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here in St. Louis, and I've also spent a bunch of time at Washington University, which is also another great liberal arts school, and I've been going there for about 15 years
Mm-hmm.
working with a business school. I go and do presentations on interviewing, on negotiation, on all different things. And I've also gone to the schools where my kids go,
Mm-hmm.
top tier liberal arts. And what I realized early on is even though all of these schools have amazing career centers,
Mm-hmm.
these kids, like the best and the brightest,
Mm-hmm.
were hungry for the information that I was sharing.
Uh-huh.
And I realized, wow, if these kids are hungry for it, think about the kids at the schools where the career centers are not as well funded or not as
Uh-huh.
strong.
Right.
And there's a real need for this. And so when my baby went to college,
Mm-hmm.
I was thrown for a loop and I started working with a personal coach. And
Okay.
he kind of gave me a kick in the pants. He said, you talk about this book and you light up like a Christmas tree.
Mm-hmm.
Why haven't you written it? So he's
Uh-huh.
the one who got me started. Then the pandemic hit, which
Uh-huh.
is what motivated me heads down to get it out there. So that was
Mm-hmm.
the reason for doing it. Now, what is
Okay.
the book about? I really, when I wrote the book, Alex, I am not somebody who can read a dense book.
Okay.
I like books that are really easy to read, that are engaging, that have stories that are relatable,
Mm-hmm.
readable, and actionable. And
Mm-hmm.
this is kind of, if I could have called this my career Bible, I would have, but we decided that name wouldn't work. It
Right.
is meant to be one-stop shopping. The
Right.
upfront part is the strategic part of
Mm-hmm.
how to think about your career. It's
Mm-hmm.
the figuring out your strengths and the phases of your career.
Mm-hmm.
It's why culture is important and why you always have to think long term
Mm-hmm.
when making decisions. And believe me, if you read the book, you'll hear all of the mistakes that not only other people made, but I made in my
Mm-hmm.
career.
Right.
And then the back half is all of the tactical pieces. Now you know where you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get there? So it's all
Mm-hmm.
the tactical elements
Mm-hmm.
of how you get there. How do you write a great resume? How do you network? How
Mm-hmm.
do you prepare for interviews?
Mm-hmm.
Now you have an offer. How do you negotiate and how do you resign appropriately?
Right.
So it's meant to be one stop shopping that you can go back to throughout your career
Mm-hmm.
again and again and again.
Mm-hmm. Right. So this is not just a book for, say, kids starting out in their careers. I mean, like someone who's in their 30s and their 40s. I mean, heck, even all the way until retirement, can they pick up something from here that they can apply to themselves?
Absolutely. In fact, a VP of marketing who I know well was going through a job transition, and she got my book and she told me, she said, Kris, this was my bedtime reading. As I was
Mm-hmm.
going through my process,
Mm-hmm.
I was going through your chapter every step of the way. As I
Mm-hmm.
was looking for a job, I was reading about networking,
Mm-hmm.
and I was doing exactly what you were telling me. As I was going through the interview process, I was reading your interview chapter. I was doing my cards. I was preparing for, getting to know the company. I got the offer, and then I was going through your negotiation chapter. She's like, you would laugh if you saw my book because there are so many sticky notes sticking out. But she said it was amazing. So it does not matter where
Mm-hmm.
you are in your career. The
Okay.
information in it is what the O'Connell Group has developed
Mm-hmm.
over our 27 years that we share with people
Mm-hmm.
independent of the level.
Mm-hmm.
And Alex, the one other thing I'll share with you is if this is not enough for people, because some people need more hands-on, we also offer services
Mm-hmm.
beyond this at igniteyourcareerbook.com. Things
Mm-hmm.
like complete coaching, resume writing, interview prep, and negotiation services.
Right. Okay. Well, all right then. So the book is kind of more like a starting point, and if you
Mhm.
really need more, then they can get in touch with you.
Absolutely.
All right. Great. So I just like to go a little bit into some of the topics in this book. I mean, when I was kind of like going over what the book is all about, what struck me was that some of these things are like common sense, and yet it's not really, what they say about common sense not being that common.
Yeah.
It's common sense, but it doesn't seem to be commonly practiced. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, it is common sense in that I think you read it and you nod up and down
Yeah.
because it's really logical and it makes enormous sense,
Mm-hmm.
but it may just be a little bit different than you've ever thought about it. And that's the magic of it.
Mm-hmm.
And one example I'll give you is in the interview section,
Okay.
where, when I'm telling people how to prepare,
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell people that, if somebody asks your strengths and
Mm-hmm.
you rattle off 3 or 4 strengths, and I ask them 10 minutes later what your strengths are, they will not remember.
Uh-huh.
So it's so critical to tell stories that really bring your experiences to life through visualization. And
Mm-hmm.
so, I tell them you write out your stories in the star format. And
Mm-hmm.
and the star format has been around forever. It
Mm-hmm.
used to be situation, task, action, result. Well, I tell people, forever when I was in marketing eons ago,
Mm-hmm.
I used to shake my head and say, I don't understand what task is. It
Mm-hmm.
really confuses me. So I
Right.
shifted it.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's situation, thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And the thinking for every industry, it's going to be different. My
Mm-hmm.
industry, it might be the market research, the analysis, what the sales guy told you, the trends you noted.
Right.
But the way to think about it is it's that light bulb that goes off
Mm-hmm.
that leads you to the action and the result.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you think about the story that way, all of a sudden it's like, it's logical. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
it makes so much sense. And it's such an easy way to tell and follow a story.
Right.
Not all that different, just a little bit of a tweak that makes it make so much sense and also differentiates you from everybody else who
Mm-hmm.
may be trying to tell stories.
Right. And one of the topics that stuck out for me was resigning. I mean, I don't think there are a lot of books out there that talk about resigning, or how to resign. I mean, I guess as far as the job market is concerned, resigning is the R word, so to speak. So
Yep.
I'm pretty surprised and pleased that you would include the topic of resigning in your book.
Well, I am such a believer in relationships and maintaining really positive relationships throughout your career.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why resigning in a positive, respectful way is so important.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and while I have seen people take counteroffers because it feels good to be wanted. I have
Mm-hmm.
never seen people take a counteroffer, listen to a counteroffer, even accept one
Mm-hmm.
that worked. You
Uh-huh.
know, they
Uh-huh.
may have said, okay, I'll stick around, but the thing that motivated them to look initially hasn't gone away. So within
Uh-huh.
6 months, they're out of there anyway. So
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I always tell people, cut it off at the pass. Tell them, that you have loved your time. You so appreciate everything. If they start making noises about counteroffers, be respectful and say, look, out of respect for you, please do not counteroffer. It's not going to do anything. I don't want you to waste your time.
Mm-hmm.
My decision is made. I really value our relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And, thank you for everything, but I'm moving on.
Mm-hmm.
And while they'll be disappointed, they will be much more disappointed if they go to all the effort to put together a counteroffer, only
Mm-hmm.
to either have you say later much, right that moment, or 6 months later.
Right.
And even if somebody does accept a counteroffer, you've already shown your stripes that
Mm-hmm.
you're not a company player, that
Uh-huh.
you are, so when the next promotion comes around or anything else, believe me, you're not going to be the one who they're going to fall on their sword for.
Mm-hmm. Right. All right. Good point. Good point. Yeah. I mean, that is. I mean, resigning in how do I put it? In a good way. It's not often spoke of, but it's also necessary, particularly when it comes to maintaining relationships.
Yep.
Yeah.
Eh,
Okay.
Yeah, and like we talked about before with networking,
Mm-hmm.
your past bosses, who knows where they're going to be in the future?
Mm-hmm.
And they may hire you down the road. And
Mm-hmm.
so you really want to keep them, you want to keep them close and you want to keep them feeling really good about you.
Right. Right. Okay. Great. Okay. Okay, so Kris, this is a very interesting topic for me, and I think we could go on for much longer, but we're kind of winding down now. So, in this last minute or so of this interview, is there anything you'd like to say, or any words of wisdom you'd like to share, maybe to inspire our listeners?
What I would tell you is um, 2021 is going to be a great year.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel getting brighter and brighter on many fronts.
Mm-hmm.
We are seeing the job market percolate
Mm-hmm.
in a big way. Companies are moving forward. A lot of the uncertainty is going away.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would tell people to spend a lot of time networking,
Mm-hmm.
getting their resume in really great shape.
Mm-hmm.
I would tell you, I have seen we didn't talk about resumes, a lot of resumes trying to differentiate themselves looking fancy.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what you want to do. You want to have substance. You want to be clear and concise and have results. And that's what's going to deliver you
Mm-hmm.
to the interview at the end of the day. But I would tell you, figure out who you are,
Mm-hmm.
what your strengths are, where
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be successful,
Right.
build that foundation,
Mm-hmm.
focus on yourself and invest the time, and things will end up in a really great place.
All right. Okay. Well, that's great words right there, particularly after the hammering I'm sure everyone experienced last year.
Absolutely.
All right, great. Cool. So then in closing, our guest is Kris Holmes. Her book is Ignite Your Career: Strategies and Tactics to Unleash Your Potential. You can find this on Amazon. So Kris, thank you very much for being an author story. It was a lot of fun speaking with you today.
Alex, thank you so much. Very much enjoyed the time as well.
You're welcome. So everyone, check out Ignite Your Career and go right ahead and hit that subscribe button to get alerted to all the people and stories we have on this channel. So catch you guys next time on Author Story, the home of authors and people with stories that matter.